Well, here he is. You know him, Congressman Ron Paul, leading advocate for freedom in our nation's capital, a member of the U.S. House of Representatives. Dr. Paul works for limited constitutional government, low taxes, free markets, return to a sound monetary policy. He is known among his congressional colleagues and his constituents for his consistent voting record. Dr. Paul never votes for legislation unless the proposed measure is authorized by the Constitution. The words of former Treasury Secretary William Simon. Dr. Paul is the one exception to the gang of 535 on Capitol Hill. He's our guest this hour in Coast to Coast. Congressman, welcome back.
Thank you. Nice to be with you.
My pleasure. Well, first of all, let me ask you this. It appears that John McCain's going to get all the delegates he needs for the Republican nomination, but you're still in the race. How come?
Well, I guess because I've run a lot of races over the years, and it's usually for two reasons. One, to maximize the vote and win the election if I can. And I have won quite a few over the years. But also run for the long term. I'm trying to change things. I'm trying to change the country. I'm trying to, right now, reintroduce to the Republican Party the traditions that they used to believe in, limited government and balanced budgets and a sensible foreign policy. So I still think it's worthwhile to keep running because I'm still getting support. We're raising money. We have money in the bank, and there's a lot of the supporters who want to go as delegates, and they're going through the process, and so I'm still in doing what they want me to do.
Well, and I like the idea to change. I get a lot of emails about a lot of different subjects over the years, but I got to tell you, I've never gotten more about anybody than you. This Coast audience is so in touch with your desire to, get this country back and get it back on a sound track. And well, this may sound like an endorsement for you. It's not. You're an American. You're a patriot, Congressman, and I wish all the other candidates at least would use part of your platform as they run.
Well, hopefully they will. Right now, it doesn't look like it, but I think the support that we're getting. So far we've gotten over 800,000 votes cast in Republican Party primaries. But there's a lot of people who give us support that really aren't involved in the Republican Party or in the primary process. Matter of fact, there are a lot of young people who aren't even voting, and other independents who haven't been involved, and a lot of Democrats send me support. So I think it's much bigger than that. And when especially when we go to the campuses, we realize that there's a lot of enthusiasm for the message, and they realize that the country's facing problems, and I think the other candidates are in many ways in denial, and they talk about so many things that doesn't have much to do with what our real problems are. They get off on these frivolous issues. So I think we've tapped into something, and therefore I will stay engaged as long as there's an interest.
We're going to talk about a lot of issues with you this hour. We'll also open up the phone lines a little bit later on and get an opportunity for our listeners to ask you a question or two. I kind of want to use you as also my expert in the elections so far. As you look at the Democratic side between Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, how do you look at that race? And do you have any feelings on who you think might get that nomination?
Well, I always, actually, at the beginning, I was completely wrong because I thought Edwards would be the candidate. And right now, the way these two are fighting and screaming and tearing each other up, I would think if he's in the race, he might be doing pretty well. But I guess after Edwards did so poorly, I guess I've always thought that, it will probably be Obama, but I don't think I have much more insight than anybody else because every day it's a different story that comes out, and the media really works both of them over pretty well.
Oh, and it is like a roller coaster. Almost every other day, one is ahead of the other, and it just keeps shifting back and forth, back and forth.
Right, and I think so often it's on superficial issues, and they're not dealing with what I think they should be talking about. And none of them ever talk about monetary policy. I mean, how many times have they talked about worrying about a deficit? I mean, even John McCain is sort of in that category. He doesn't really worry about the deficit, and nobody talks about a change in foreign policy. Some say that we should stay 100 years. Others say we'll stay until we win. And nobody really expects our foreign policy to change, whether it's Iraq or how we treat the rest of the world.
Let's talk a little bit about Iraq, if we can, for a moment, Congressman. A few weeks ago, Pentagon report came out and said that there was no connection between Al-Qaeda and Saddam Hussein at the time, which was one of the things that came up during President Bush's statements on why we are in Iraq and why we should stay in Iraq. And of course, we've known all along that the weapons of mass destruction were never found. I don't know if they were ever there or not, but they were never found. As you look at the situation in Iraq, as you look at the economy here at home and the money we're spending over there, what would you do in this particular situation? It's one of those catch-22s now. If we pull out, I would assume that many of our supporters in Iraq are going to get slaughtered. If we stay, this could go on forever.
Yeah, not a very good choice. But the big problem is you don't even know who the supporters are. For a while, we were fighting the Sunnis, and they were doing most of the killing over there. Now, there's been sort of a lull, which they say is a success from the surge, but it's been a little bit different than that. What we have done is we have literally rearmed the Sunnis, and they have quietly taken all our weapons. We have armed 80,000 Sunnis right now, and they've been fighting us. So they're just waiting for another day. So I don't know who our friends really are, because even the official Iraqi army, how do they know how many of those are infiltrators that are, part of the Shiites or the Sunnis that might not be really wanting us there? I think the statistics that show that the very vast majority, the large number of Iraqis, no matter which sect they belong to, don't want us there. So it to me is a powder keg. I don't see any purpose in staying. We went in under false pretenses, and it's cost so much. We will leave. There's no way we can finance our empire that much longer. And this idea that we'll stay as long as it need be. Eventually what happens is a country runs out of money, and that's what our dollar is telling us. We overtax and we overborrow, and we still don't have enough. So we keep the printing presses running, and that's why our dollar is going down sharply, and the cost will go up. And I think we'll leave, if we don't leave now in a more graceful manner, we're more likely to leave later on in a more humiliating manner. But the plain truth is that the finances will determine it, probably not the politics of the debates going on in Washington.
Well, in terms of the finances, we see what's happening all over the place now with foreclosures and investment banks taking a bite and everything else. First of all, let me ask you about the Federal Reserve, which a lot of people are finally beginning to realize is not part of government, but it's part of private banks. What would you do with the Federal Reserve?
Well, it should be eliminated. We shouldn't have it. There's never been any proper authority. There's no constitutional authority for it. And what they do is not morally correct or right, because we've given this secret bank the privilege of creating money out of thin air. And that's counterfeit. So the government is doing something that if you or I did, we'd go to prison, and then we assume, it's okay. A few bankers in secret rooms can determine this, and a few people know what's happening. And when things are going well, they make billions and billions of dollars. And even when the market goes sour, it seems like some of them are able to get out rather gracefully and get big bonuses and survive. But I also know that getting rid of the Federal Reserve in one day is not, feasible, that nobody's going to do that. So my plan has been for many, many years, as far back as the 80s when I was on the Gold Commission, is that you should phase back in to the system the constitutional right of having gold and silver currency. And today, with all the modern technology and computers, we could have two currencies circulating in this country. we have currencies circulating, and the values are changing every minute throughout the world. So I would re-legalize gold and silver so that people who are tired of saving their money in a dollar standard could save in a gold standard.